Hello, folks. This is Jordan Harmon, and I'm talking to you today about the coronavirus, and more specifically about dealing with anxiety and panic over the coronavirus and such pandemics or large scale crises. So, first off, I am not an expert in coronavirus or medical issues at all. My area of expertise is in psychotherapy and specifically in treating severe distress and behavioral and compassionate approaches to difficulties in relationships or in our own life situations. So I want to talk about how that relates to coronavirus. But most people are walking this line between we don't want to panic on one side and we don't want to make things worse than they are through panic, and we need to take this very seriously, and there's things that we can do. So I want to talk about some of those things. First of all, it's very important to be educated, to be aware about these kinds of things when they're happening. I mean, this, when I say these kinds of things, I'm 41 years old, forget sometimes, and nothing like this has ever happened in my lifetime. So when I say it's important to be educated about these kinds of things, I'm kind of saying, this is new at the same time. But being educated, reading about it, catching up on the news, what's the latest update. At the same time, if we're just live, watching the news all day throughout the day, that might be not as healthy. Oftentimes they're just kind of looping back the same stuff, and we might just work ourselves up more and more into a panic. Anxiety is important. Anxiety can be good for us. A certain level of stress or anxiety can help us act and do things that help us be safe and help us be secure and be in a good place and be prepared. However, an anxiety disorder or a stress disorder is when we're obsessively worrying, or we can't escape that anxiety. And there are moments of crisis where that's good, where we have to continue to fight or flee from whatever existential threat there is. In this case, it's interesting in that this is the beginning of something likely that's going to be more serious for a month or two, maybe longer, maybe shorter. But the idea is the information we're getting is to do things now, to take it seriously now, so that it doesn't spread as severely as it could. And so we're seeing institutions across the world and in America as well, canceling events, shutting down large group activities. Some schools are canceling, probably a lot more to follow, sporting events. Lots of things are canceling, and audiences for events are not being included. And institutions and agencies are figuring out how to deal with this, as are families and individual humans. But being educated is important. However, I would recommend to not that you don't need to just sit and watch the news 24 hours in the day for every update. People can do that, of course, and some people might not have an anxious response to that. But I noticed last night as watching watching the news myself, I noticed the anxiety response, and I think that was a good thing. It kind of made me think of different contingencies and thinking forward. But I also realized, as I was watching it and they started kind of just repeating the same things I had heard in the last 30 minutes or the last hour, that my heart rate was up, and it was going to keep consuming things, and I wasn't actually going to be able to do the things that would be helpful if I just sat there and was watching the news. But it is compelling. It's kind of, it's like compelling reality TV, because it is reality, and it is affecting us personally more than maybe some other reality TV that we might watch. So educate, be aware and be educated, and feel free to turn off the news too and check in later to see if there's any developments. But so find that balance there. The other thing is, take the steps. If you're anxious, it might be that your anxiety is provoking or promoting you to say, okay, I need to check in with my work and find out, if we have a plan in place for working from home. Or I need to check in with my children's school and find out if there is, most agencies are going to be contacting their people. However, you might be the head of an agency, or you might be someone that needs to be doing that and heading up the plan. So take the steps you need. That might be you're washing your hands better than you usually do. It might be maybe you have a cough and you've been going to work, and your anxiety now is enough that you're saying, you know what, I need to take this more seriously. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to call my work and say, I'm not coming in today. And if you're having the symptoms, the other symptoms like a fever and things, that would be important to check in and call your doctor and get the expert advice from there. And hopefully there's testing available for you. And if not, you find out from those experts in the medical field what you should do next. But staying at home and not going out if you're sick is going to be important. We're seeing this kind of play out, the social distancing intervention, which seems to be, on one hand, I think it's causing some panic for people because this is something that they're not used to. And on the other hand, understanding why this is important and how this can help slow down like a potentially exponential increase of this virus spreading, that the social distancing practices or interventions can dramatically help reduce exponential spread of this kind of thing. So understanding that can help you know that this isn't the end of the world. This is very serious, and these social distancing practices are meant to help curb this exponential spread. So so we've got be educated, but also don't ruminate or don't have a live 24-hour feed of news coming on. And then we've got take the steps you need to take if you haven't. And once you've done that, if you're still anxious, which a lot of you will be, that's normal. A lot of times anxiety, when it's more of a disorder, it's that there's all this urge to do and to fix and to, what do I got to do, and now I got to fix this. But there's actually no steps that we can take. There's things that are totally outside of our control. So much of what's going on here is going to be out of your control. Like the virus is already there. It's already spreading. You may have already had it. You know, there's a lot of people that have had maybe what they thought was the flu or a cough in the last couple months that actually might have had the coronavirus. There's a lot that you cannot control with this. And so just reminding yourself of that, like, okay, do what I can do, and then let me step back and remind myself there's a lot I cannot control here. Let me bring my attention back to this present moment. You know, am I going to work? Am I not going to work? Are my kids at home? What are they doing? And then bring yourself back to other things. Okay, it's time for breakfast. Let me eat my breakfast. It's time for lunch. You know, go ahead and do the things that are healthy things to do every day, as long as they're not directly against medical advice, obviously. But it's going to be normal for your mind to wander into these kind of scenarios and what if and what should I do? And a lot of that stuff is stuff you cannot control. And so you can check in and ask yourself, is that something I can do something about? And if it's not, then allow yourself to come back to, okay, what can I do in this moment? And if it's that I'm at work and I need to focus on this task, then allow yourself to bring yourself back in this moment. In that same way that you're bringing yourself back to the moment, you're bringing yourself back to, okay, where am I? What time is it? Who's around me? And so you can focus on whether that's your family and like, you know, let's distract ourselves from this for a moment. We're educated. We've done the steps. Now let's watch a show together. Or let's play a game. Or I'm going to go to work. Or I'm going to make dinner. You know, keep living your life and keep checking in. You know, you will keep checking. You'll hear about it. Like you're going to hear about what's the new updates. And so you won't even have to check in. It'll be coming to you. The other thing is be aware that people will have different responses. Some people are going to say, oh, this is no big deal. This is way blown over. Some people are saying this is, you know, this is the worst thing ever. Let's cancel everything. And that's normal. People have different responses to crises, and to some people kind of shut down and kind of numb and don't react at all. Some people become very distressed. And so understanding that will help you kind of take a step back and not kind of further up the panic. Right? So anxiety can be good. Panic typically is not, though it still happens. Panic can cause more problems. That's why in the old example of the theater fire, there's a law, or I think there's a law against yelling fire in a theater, even if there is a fire, because more people would die from the trampling out of a theater fire than actually by the fire itself. And so it's a very hard thing to do. Our brains are not wired to be calm in crisis. However, we can do things to bring our calmness down. So you can do paced breathing. I've got a video on paced breathing on this account. You can do, and there's others on YouTube. You can do progressive muscle relaxation. You can exercise, like intense exercise. Those things can bring anxiety down. You can check the facts and see, okay, is this something I can control? You can use mindfulness meditation. You can talk to people that you care about. And all of this, of course, is after taking steps that you need to take, remembering that you won't be able to take enough steps to be 100% safe. And that's true when there's a pandemic and when there's not. We're always vulnerable to tragedy and crises and things like that, just as the nature of existence. So some of this will be accepting the uncertainty and coming back to, okay, letting go of what I can't control. And at the same time, you do want to be educated and do what you can do. Let's see, what else do I have here? So, yeah, this is unfolding. This is an interesting time. One other thing is moments like this can definitely be opportunities for people to point fingers, and sometimes there's good reason to do that. I was impressed that Nancy Pelosi, I just saw a news conference with her, and she was declining to get into a blaming situation with the administration who she's had a contentious relationship with. And she was saying now is not the time for that. We'll have a time later to look back and assess, but now is the time to come together and work together. So in the same way, in your own families, in your own work environments, your social situations, now's, this anxiety can be times where it kind of promotes further, that fight or flight response is there, and it can exhibit itself in our other relationships and conversations. And it can also be a time to step back, have compassion, work together, and help each other, right? So kind of have that in your mind of, do I want to be one of the helpers in this situation? Helping might mean staying home in your room all by yourself, Do I want to build bridges and help inform and help educate and help people, to encourage them to take it seriously and yet at the same time be healthy and relax as much as possible while taking it seriously? Or do I want to, divide and blame and build problems on top of problems that are pretty big already? So let's join together to be compassionate, to be smart, to pay attention, and to be good to each other and to ourselves. And thanks for paying attention, and we'll check in later. Thanks. Bye.